On this episode of Locked On Angels, the Halos have 99 losses, but Artie ain't one. I came up with that all by myself. We're going to recap the weekend series, the final weekend of the season. So it is Gratitude Monday because the season is over. But we're going to ask three really important questions of three different pitchers from this weekend. So it's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to John and I, the Super Halo Bros, for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can help us out with. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, we're glad you're here. Hit that thumbs up button and please subscribe. That really helps out the channel. Become a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment, even if it's just, hey guys, we would love to talk with you. It's the best way to get in touch with John and I and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Happy Monday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, the season is over, but the Frisch Brothers, the Super Halo Bros, we don't stop. We're here 5 days a week talking Angels baseball until like late December. Then we'll go down to about 3 episodes a week through the offseason. But as far as your regularly scheduled programming goes, 5 days a week here, Monday through Friday on Locked On Angels. Hey, before we get into a preview of today's show, I just want to let everybody know it is time to grade the roster, grade the players. Now that the season is over, we're going to give you a week to do that. And then next week, we'll be doing our player grades. Every year, it's so much fun. We get so much good feedback, good and bad, on the players. And people put in their expectations, what they hope for, what they think is going to happen. And so if you want to participate, you can do so. There's a Google survey. There's a link in the episode description, and you can find it there. And all you have to do is just grade the players, leave, 1 to 3, not one syllable, just like 1 to 3 words about the player. And then we kind of sum it all up for you. And we'll do that next week. On today's show, it's the last weekend of the year. We're asking 3 important questions of 3 pitchers, Mike. And so let's start with Friday night's loss. The Angels lost 5-2 against the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, Reid Detmers was on the mound in this game, and he showed why he can be really good and why he can't be really good, right? Like 5 innings, 4 earned, 8 hits, not so good, but 12 Ks, John, really good. 1 walk, really good, and 3 home runs, not so good. The 12 Ks were a career high for Reid Detmers. He finished the season, John, with a 6.70 ERA in 17 starts in the big leagues. Johnny had a 5.54 ERA in 14 starts in AAA. This is the highest ERA of any AL pitcher with at least 80 innings pitched. Yay! And it's the same narrative in this game. John Gooby said it before the game that Reid has to believe and trust in his fastball, and it sets up his secondary stuff. And in this game, he had moments where it looked like he believed, but then he fell apart with the home runs. On this start, Ron Washington said, I still see some things that Reid needs to work on, and that's keeping the ball down in the zone and making better pitches in certain situations. But he did show what he's made of and what he can do. 5 innings, struck out 12. That's usually the kind of stuff the guy he faced does. He was facing Jacob deGrom, and deGrom typically has a history of doing something like that. Now, Detmers on this start, Johnny, he said there's a lot more positives than negatives, but obviously the negatives stand out more. I guess the question that I have to start our show is, what do you do with Reid? I have some thoughts, but I would love to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, I was looking at between AAA and the majors, 155 and a third innings pitched for Reid Detmers. I was curious what that number was. And remember, Mike, before the season started, one of the criticisms, the many criticisms we had about this team was the fact that these guys were going to have to play above their heads.
Yeah.
They were going to have to do things that they've never done
Yeah.
in their career. And one of those was Detmers hitting an innings pitch that he's never hit before. And we did see a lot of innings from Tyler Anderson. We saw a lot of innings from Griffin Canning. When it comes to Reid Detmers, I actually mentioned this on Saturday. We'll talk about Saturday. I had to laugh because Reid Detmers often gets the treatment of Andrew Heaney in the sense that well, here they are again, hit and miss, because remember, Heaney would look great and then he'd look terrible and he was just so inconsistent. I'm afraid the same thing has happened to Reid Detmers. And so I tweeted about that. And then Josh H on Twitter said, think it's time to trade Reid. Probably does well with a change of scenery. And because of age and team control, he still holds value. I responded to that and I said, I'm starting to fear that you're right, Josh H, because it just seems to be going that way. My only hang up is that he couldn't get right with the Angels. And that would be frustrating to see him go off somewhere and become the guy that I think is in there. Not 100% sure if he's in there or not, Mike. I mean, we've seen flashes of it. We've seen, promise with Reid Detmers. Again, he's 24, so I don't think that that I'm ready to write the last chapter on him or close the book on him, because it seems like all these guys are such late bloomers that it's fortunate that we still have him for a few years if they decide to. But I don't think Josh H is wrong. I don't think the scenery is a bad idea for Reid Detmers. I don't think that value, while you still can, is a bad thing for Detmers. Otherwise, are we just going to go the Andrew Heaney route again, where you get hit and miss Heaney and then you trade him in his last year for, two guys who aren't even on the team anymore? It was Jansen Junk and Elvis Peguero. And Peguero, has at least done well with the Brewers in relief. But again, it really is a conundrum, and I think it's something worth diving into this season when it comes to Reid Detmers.
Yeah. Now, he did turn 25 in July, so he's 25 years old, but he did get that extra year because he was in the minor league. So the Angels have control for one more year of him, which is why if I'm the Angels, I'm hanging on to this guy and I'm giving him time. I'm just going to give him time to figure it out, because he's got Blake Snell-esque type stuff where he can strike out a bunch of guys in a small amount of innings, right? And so I think that another year under Barry Enright would be great. Even if you maybe have him go to AAA, I don't know if that's going to be beneficial for him. It's really a kind of a bummer to hear him talk about his time there and also his time in the majors, because there's still a shoulder shrug when it comes to his responses to things. I don't know. I'm not sure. Right. And so I think that there's a lot that needs to be undone in Reid Detmers, and I think he needs some time.
Yeah. There was a comment that he made, I believe it was to Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register, about knowing what he needed to do over the offseason. And he said, fastball location is going to be priority one for me.
Good.
And so at least there's some recognition there. But again, that's what's been missing from a lot of these guys, the lack of recognition. And that's why it was refreshing for somebody like Kochanowicz to go, I know what I need to do.
Right.
Or even Aldaguerri, Aldaguerri. I keep saying it wrong. I keep mixing up my D and my G. Aldaguerri saying, I know what I need to do when I come back. And it was unfortunate that he, got hurt with the blister thing. And so he had to sit down. But all of that to say, that's what's been missing from a lot of these young starters, even a Griffin Canning. We've talked about it before. I think we talked about it a few weeks ago, struggling in spring training, doing the whole thing where you can get pulled out of the inning, but you can come back because it's spring training. Yeah. And there was a lot of Griffin Canning just going, I think I know what I need to do. And it was just like, but do you know what you need to do? I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah. I really think time works best for Reid specifically, because again, that undoing of what has been invested in him in the last few years has not been great. And there wasn't an investment, right? It's been terrible investment. And so I think he's somebody that needs some time to work some things out. And I do think that there needs to be some humility when it comes to working those things out and knowing that he's got to put in the time. And hopefully this offseason, it sounds like he's willing to do that.
Are you saying that Reid Detmers needs to be unburdened by what has been.
Yeah. Johnny, a couple notes from this game. Can we talk about the first note?
Yes, this was
game,
great.
there was an interview from Erica Weston to Maybelle Blair. Now, she played for the All-American Girls Baseball League.
Yeah.
John, she's 97, but she's got so much excitement. You would
Spunk,
think that
baby.
Yes, you would think that she's right, like 67, right? And so they asked her about, her time there. And I love that she creeped into what the Angels need to do this offseason and what they're going to do next year. And I know Erica Weston works for Bally Sports, and, Angels are always watching. And you could see her like smirk when she started talking about the offseason, but also Erica didn't want to ask any follow-up questions to that because who knows what she would say. But John, share what Maybelle said about the offseason and the Angels.
Oh, yeah. She said we have a good young core, and she said, they need to call me and I'll tell you who to keep and who to get rid of, and we'll be World Series champions. Like, I can't wait till I hope I make it to 97. Yeah. And then I can just say whatever the heck I want at any time. And people just go, oh, great Grandpa John. Like, you're what a silly guy. You know what I'm saying? So that was really great. And my wife was dying laughing. She was like, this woman is fabulous. I want to meet her.
Does she have money? Can she buy the team?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. And then, Johnny, that second note, the Tigers, they clinched a playoff spot on Friday night. And so the Halos find themselves with the longest streak of not making the playoffs. I don't know if you saw the MLB article that had the Dodgers 12 straight years winning the NL West, and the Angels 10 straight years not making the playoffs. The comments were wild. It was great. A lot of like, yay, us.
Yeah. You know what? I think you said it wrong, Mike. The Halos have the longest streak of not making the playoffs. Artie Moreno's Angels
got it.
Have not made the playoffs in the last 10 years. The longest streak in baseball.
Yep.
Artie Moreno's Angels have not made the playoffs for the longest streak, the longest time. Now that the Tigers made it. And so there it is. That's the way the cookie crumbles. Artie Moreno, solely responsible for all of this, solely responsible for not making the playoffs, and now getting passed up by the Detroit Tigers. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we'll keep asking the question about these pitchers. Next up, what do the Halos do with Griffin Canning? We'll talk about all of that coming right up.
Hey, Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And you NFL fans, as you're watching games, and maybe even those of you that are watching baseball in the postseason, you need to check out FanDuel, because if you get a hunch, maybe a stirring, maybe a Peter tingle or a spidey sense in the middle of a game.
A hankering? How about that?
A hankering? I love that. You can actually check out the latest stats with FanDuel and view play-by-play and so much more on the same page that you're placing bets. So you have all of the knowledge you need to win as you're making your bets. And FanDuel is going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just because they love you, baby. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And everydayers, we are so excited. It's happening this Saturday, Mike. Can you believe it? I can't believe it's already here.
I'm ready.
The O'Hoppe All-Star Bowl, October 5th, this Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. at Cal Bowl in Lakewood. We're all getting together to bowl with Logan O'Hoppe and his teammates, and we're raising money for Corey's Promise, a nonprofit that walks alongside families whose children are dealing with pediatric cancer. Such a great cause, such a great event, and we're so excited to hang out with you and the players, of course, and we're going to get to bowl together, support a great cause, and we're going to get some games against the Halos as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Grab your tickets by clicking the link in the show description. When you do, use our promo code BROS at checkout, BROS, and you can get $50 off your ticket. Mike and I are going to be there. We're going to have some Super Halo Bros merch for our everydayers to be given out. So we're really excited and hope you join us at the O'Hoppe All-Star Bowl.
Johnny, Saturday's game was fan appreciation night, and the Angels appreciated the fans so well that they were up 7-1 in the third inning and up 8-5 in the ninth inning, and they lost. 9-8, John.
What kind of fan appreciation night would it be without one last buttercup for the season, Mike? Because that's what this was. The offense had 13 hits, but the bullpen and the defense squandered this one. It all started with Hunter Strickland was struggling, and then you had Jose Quijada come in, and he did his thing where he's not surprising at all. He's not getting anybody to guess up there. It's just fastball. Saw like a changeup or two, but Mike, he didn't get anybody out. And then just when you think that maybe they're going to get out of this tied 8-8, God bless him. Gustavo Quintero hits his first home run in this one, but then costs the Angels the game by just chucking the ball. He's a chucker, Mike. He just chucks the ball from right field, misses. I don't know who he was throwing at, Mike. And so another run came in, made it 9-8. And then the Angels didn't do anything in the bottom of the ninth to get it back. And so they lost this one. It was really absurd because, again, it was Andrew Heaney on the mound, and the Angels I think it was 3 home runs off of him too. And it was the same with Reid Detmers on Friday night. And so that's why the comparison was being drawn there. But at the same time, I can't believe they let this one get away. And then there was Griffin Canning going 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned runs. Not too shabby. Again, it's one of those Griffin Canning starts. He didn't give away the game in the beginning of the game, which was nice. But it was a short outing, 2 earned runs. It's about as good as you're going to get from Griffin Canning at this point, right, Mike? So what do you do with Griffin Canning as we head into the offseason?
Time is what I would give Reid Detmers. Time has shown us with Griffin Canning who he is. This is who he is, right? He's been this guy who's given up a few home runs and runs in the first couple of innings, and then he's able to maybe settle down a little bit and get you at least 5, get you maybe 6. In fact, it was Barry Enright that said he was really impressive as the Angels were losing to the Diamondbacks last year, and he was able to at least stay in the game and give the Angels offense an opportunity. John, time has shown that this is who he is. So I think with Griffin Canning, the greatest play is if he's going to be in your starting rotation, this guy needs an opener. That's going to help him, because when he's had an opener, he's pitched a whole lot better. And so if you're going to keep him in your starting rotation, you need to be thoughtful about how you're going to use him, because right now he wouldn't be in my starting rotation in 2025. He wouldn't even be close to it. He'd have to really earn his spot. And if he doesn't earn his spot, I would use him as a trade chip to try to see if I can get maybe some more offense or maybe some more bullpen or maybe even another pitcher, because he is still young and he's still under, control. And
this year, I didn't realize, I just looked it up. 2025 is the last year of
arbitration.
So
they'll give him a contract, but then this is his last year. So I don't think that he comes back after this. John, he fits into that category of like a Reid Detmers, where he's just frustrating. And we're going to talk about Kochanowicz in the next segment. It's so fascinating to me how different he is than Griffin Canning and Reid Detmers. He's already shown us who he is, and Canning's shown us who he is. This is who he is. And so if you're going to keep him on your team, then you have to work around his deficiencies and really flex on where he's strong. And what we saw this season is that he's not great in the first couple of innings. So I think he needs an opener. If the Angels are going to be thoughtful and strategic with Griffin Canning, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah. He's not in my rotation in 2025. In fact, I think that you kind of have to, cut your losses at this point and try to get what you can for him. The one positive in Griffin Canning's case is the number of innings he pitched this season, his ability to take the ball, stay healthy this year. I know he struggled with health over the last couple of years, but Mike, this was the first full season that we really had out of Griffin Canning, other than like 2020, which wasn't a full season.
Right.
And what's frustrating is exactly what you said. He can come out and he can give you the expected Griffin Canning start where he struggles in the beginning of the game. And yes, maybe he needs an opener. But what I find frustrating is how he can dominate the Dodgers lineup.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, where's that guy?
Yeah.
Why are you able to do that? But then you struggle against the A's or, the White Sox or whatever it is. It's just like, what is the cognitive dissonance between, taking on a really bad team and a really good team? And not that Texas is bad. I know they're not making the playoffs, but, they are still the same pretty much lineup as they were last year.
Right.
I know that they had a significant fall off, but the thing is this was a good Griffin Canning outing for Griffin Canning. This was a good outing for Griffin Canning, and we don't get enough of this. And also, it's questionable if he can repeat it, because time after time after time we see a different Griffin Canning out there. And here's my thing, Mike. I think that if they can move him to a team somewhere who needs an innings guy that they can rely on, they are in a much better position to do that now, heading into the offseason, because then teams can say, all right, well, we can slot in Griffin Canning here, right? And again, same thing with Reid Detmers, I'll say, for Griffin Canning. If he gets right somewhere else and people can help him become a 3 or a 2 or something like that in a rotation, more power to them, because it has not worked in Anaheim. And maybe that's a discredit to the Angels, Griffin Canning. I would lean more toward the Angels in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
But all I'm saying is, now that I would say 3 or 4 years ago, if we were talking about moving Griffin Canning, if we were talking about moving Reid Detmers, I would have a much harder time with that. But I look around and I see Kochanowicz, I see George Clausen on the cusp. Yeah. I see Chase Silseth coming back. And I know Silseth was hurt this year, and, the results were kind of mixed last year, but he was a much better starter than he was reliever in 2023. And I also think he has the same mentality as a Kochanowicz. We haven't seen much from Sam Bachman other than minor league pitching. And I know that he was a reliever last year. They were trying him out there. But Mike, we are in a much better position now to let some of these guys be expendable and move on. And like you said, I think Griffin Canning has had enough time, while Reid Detmers, I'd be willing to give him more time. But even I don't know if I'd put him in my rotation next year. I don't know where I'd start him. And it all comes down to, who's going to impress. Oh, I didn't even mention Caden Dana. I mean, look, I'm not in any hurry to make him jump to the majors and force him into a situation and do Reid Detmers all over again, right? Because I think that's a lot of where Reid's struggles came from, was just coming up way too quickly. At the same time, I am more comfortable than I would have been a few years ago, because of the pitching is not as severely lacking as it was. And now you actually have some options where it's like, all right, well, if we need to move Griffin, we can do that. If we need to trade Reid Detmers while he still has value, that's fine too, because we also have some options to go to and try out during spring training. So that's kind of where I land on all of this. Is I feel like if you're going to move either one of these guys, the Angels are in a much better position to do so, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. These guys have at least years. They're young. Reid has some controllable years, and so if they wanted to move them, they can. I think the reason why I would even consider what you're talking about is because if we just run with these guys again, and again, I'm going to say Reid Detmers needs time. Canning has shown us over time who he is. But if we just run with the same thing, the same philosophy, then why would we expect anything different? And this is why it's so important for the Angels to be very clear about what they're trying to do. This is why, because it impacts the decisions that you make in the offseason. It impacts the decisions that you make with certain players. It's impactful, and it helps the fans to get on board with what you're doing. I don't see why there's a negative perspective there at all. And it communicates to your players what we're trying to do. And so if they're still rebuilding, then you keep guys like Griffin Canning. But if they're not, then you make moves to really infuse this roster with new talent.
Yeah. I say all this about moving Griffin Canning, but I wouldn't be super confident in any kind of significant return at this point. It's kind of it's the Andrew Heaney territory.
Yeah.
But not in the middle of the season. It's prior to 2025. All of that to say, if the Angels are going to do something, they need clarity, like you said, and there's nothing wrong with having clarity and having a direction and communicating that. And I think what we miss sometimes is, like, as fans, we want to know what the clarity is. We want to know the direction as an assurance that the Angels know the direction that they want to go. And I think that's what it comes down to is, you know, do you guys know what you want to do? Because
you know,
yeah, we certainly don't know what you're up to. So hopefully you guys know what you're up to.
Yeah. Locked On Angels is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is obsessed with finding ways to save you money on tickets, and they're available to you even up until the very last minute. You can get last minute deals on any kind of tickets and save up to 60% off. You can save more if you have the app, because in the app, there are exclusive in-app flash deals on select seats ahead of whatever event you're going to. There's zone deals where you choose the section, Game Time chooses the seats, and then they have this toggle where you can toggle all-in pricing on, and then it shows you, that feature shows you all of the costs at the very end, so you are not surprised at checkout, plus the panoramic view to see where you're sitting. And they have the lowest price guarantee. And if you find something lower than what they have, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. How about that? And then with every purchase, they have Game Time ticket coverage. It's the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So no more guesswork, no more wondering about tickets wherever you're going. Download Game Time today. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, Locked On MLB, all one word, $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? It's game time.
Oh boy. Last game of the season on Sunday. Everybody's starting around noon Pacific time because we want all these games to end around the same time so that they can sort out the schedules. And man, I'm really interested to see what happens with this Mets-Braves doubleheader today. And I don't know if you know the circumstances around that, but yeah, one team has to sweep in order for the Diamondbacks to get in. And if they split, then the Mets and Braves get, it's just insane. So that's the excitement that there is in baseball. But as far as the last game of the season went for the Angels,
not exciting.
Not exciting. An 8-0 blowout.
Yeah.
To finish this season. And look, we've had disappointing seasons before, but we've had like exciting last games where it's like, all right, you know, you can leave on a little bit of optimism. Not yesterday, Mike.
No.
Not yesterday. I think the one highlight in all of this was, and we're going to talk about him, Jack Kochanowicz, right?
Yeah, 7 innings, 3 earned. Johnny finishes the year with 9 consecutive quality starts.
Come on.
You know what you're getting with this guy.
Right.
You know exactly what you're getting with this guy. And again, John, his pitch count was low. He probably could have gone 8 innings. This guy is so consistent. John, Jack Kochanowicz is what Griffin Canning is supposed to be. He's a guy who eats innings, and he eats innings at a low earned run rate. That's exactly what you want from somebody like Jack Kochanowicz, that you put him in your starting rotation. I think this guy has earned the right to not be penciled in, but in pen, like typed in stone, carved in to that starting rotation next year. And he's somebody that, based upon what we've seen, I would put him at like number 2, number 3 in that starting rotation, just simply because he is such a consistent guy. You know what you're getting with this guy. And with a little offense, his record is probably switched. I think he's 2-6. He'd be 6-2, right?
Yeah. Here's the thing about Kochanowicz that I think everyone should dial in on when you look back at what he was able to do, and then what he might be able to do moving forward into 2025. I'm with you. Whatever bad font the Angels use on their lineup sheet and their rotation, Kochanowicz should be on there as part of that rotation. But here's what I would say. There comes a time for every pitcher, every hitter, where they have to make adjustments and they get figured out and things like that. So eventually, Mike, people will learn to lay off the sinker. I know it's his main pitch. I know that it's most effective when it's down or it's in on the hands or it's away from somebody, right? That's something that people are going to pick up on. And here's why I'm not worried about that. Because Kochanowicz has shown us that he has the ability to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
And look, there were moments this season from Kochanowicz in the handful of starts that he got where he didn't adjust, and that's where he struggled.
Right.
But then there was a obvious demonstration that he did adjust, and you started seeing the four-seam fastball a little bit more. Mike, he struck somebody out with a 99-mile-an-hour four-seam fastball yesterday. Yeah. So not only does he have this devastating sinker that gets guys out quickly and efficiently, he can pump in 99 with the four-seam.
How about that?
And so what I'm trying to say here is there will come a time where people learn about Kochanowicz and figure out what he's good at. But I think he has shown the ability to adjust back to that. And again, it's a ping pong match of adjustments between hitters and pitchers and teams and other teams. It goes back and forth, and you keep out adjusting the other one, right? And so I am not concerned about Kochanowicz going into 2025 because I think he has the ability to adjust what he's doing. Yeah, he's going to rely on that sinker because it's a really good sinker, and it's a hard sinker. And sometimes he'll even get guys to swing and miss on the sinker at 98 miles an hour, like he did with Luis Robert, right? And if that doesn't work, or guys are laying off of it because they don't want to walk or they don't want to ground out and they take the walk, then he can adjust. Yeah. And I think that he has all the room to grow coming into next season. It was funny. My wife, Abby, was laughing. She's like, he's all legs. He's tall. And like you look at him and it's like, yeah, he's 3/4 legs and 1/4 torso and head. And I was like, and that's the kind of pitcher I like right there. Right. I want a leg guy for a pitcher.
Well, that's why he can throw so hard, John, because he's not using all of his upper body. He's pushing off of the mound and doing what you're supposed to do. He's using his whole body. Absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm really impressed with him and with a little bit of offense. And we just didn't really have a major league roster in the last month of the season. And so a little bit of offense, and this guy is a completely different pitcher record wise. John, his ERA's under 4, and he started really tough, and now it's under 4, and he's pitched 7 innings in almost all of his starts coming back from the minor leagues. Had one start that was about 5 2/3, and another start that was 6. Every other start was near 7 or at 7, and so this guy is what you want on your roster. He's what you want in your starting rotation, not just because he's good, but because he is going to eat innings. And the narrative that I always hate is I need an innings eater, but an innings eater that gives up 6 earned runs is not a good guy, right? And so what I love about Kochanowicz is he's going to be that guy that's going to eat up innings in August, but he's going to do it in a very efficient sort of way. Yes. And you're going to feel like you're in the game, especially with a major league caliber roster playing behind him.
Yeah, exactly. And for him to make the adjustments that he's made, and for him to, I'll just say this, he gets it. He gets it, Mike. And certainly could have gone beyond 7 innings if he was allowed to. I think that he has a complete game or two in his future in 2025.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. He's going to be somebody that if you want to pay attention to the playoffs, check out his podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Going to have some good things to share with you, some good little nuggets of wisdom for you. He's a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels for all the latest and greatest, and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show, get in the comments section on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Mike, what do we have on deck for Tuesday's show?
Well, it's off-season time, so let's get our everydayers ready for the off-season. What will the Angels do, John?
Oh, boy.
Well, there's been some mixed messages. Funny that it comes from the Angels. And so we're going to bring some clarity. We're going to sort it out for you. What are the Angels going to do this off-season? Mike and John got you. We'll talk about that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. We hope you'll come back and join us again. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday.
I'm a Chukka?
That's your Chukka?
That's my best George Costanza.
I love it.